very special to me, don't you?
High priority. An illegal avatar has been detected in our City 3 simulation. A full investigation has been launched.
There's things that you don't know.
Any interactions with AI during this confidential intelligence research will be met with instant dismissal and criminal proceedings.
People don't break up when they love each other.
Sit down.
Hi and welcome to the SohoLIFF Spotlights. I'm Liz Farahadi and I'm really excited today because I am joined by Richard Fenwick, who is here with his absolutely stunning film Soulmate. Love this film.
Thank you.
It's fabulous. For anybody watching, could you, without any spoilers, give a little sort of roundup of what the film's about?
Well, I would say that it's mostly about it's a love story, but hidden underneath that there's a sort of a story about tech addiction as well. So we have this lonely coder who's, I think it's we said it was set around 2035, so not too far in the future, but definitely in the future. So we have this lonely coder who struck up a relationship with an AI in a simulation, and the company that she works at is developing these simulations as a way to prove whether AI can be safe before we released it onto the masses. So it's the first stage beyond where I suppose what's happening in normal society right now is the very start of AI. But we're kind of in a story where it's at a point where consciousness is starting to be a factor as well. Like if that starts to happen, I think all bets are off. So it's really priceless R&D research that they're doing at this company. So this relationship that she has is illegal, but she doesn't have very much going on in her life, and this is a very tempting relationship. The way that she's kind of developed it. So it's about how she can hold on to that relationship in a very hostile environment. So.
Oh, and it had us all on the edge of our seats all the
Thank
way
you.
through. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but it's, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk about AI, of course, at the moment. Talking of love, what do you think? Do you think it's something that is actually going to help, or do you think it's having the opposite effect?
I think it could go either way. I mean, ultimately, I think we say this about tech all the time, that it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. I think, like I was saying in that previous answer, if we get to consciousness, if we get to entities that are either in our control, that have a conscious sort of spirit or soul of some description, then you're left with this quandary that you've created, a new being, and what do you do about that? So, I mean, I think the AI community knows all this, and they're more worried about the connotations of things like machine rights, how you kind of legislate for them to have rights. You can't just switch them off if they're conscious. Things like that. So this is, and the thing about the short is that it's a precursor to a feature that I wrote before the short.
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah, and that's about all of those things. So in terms of whether I think it's going to be good for love or not, I think it could be, but it's just so far into into a region that we haven't explored yet that it could be disastrous at the same time.
Well, this is what I loved about the film, though, is because you're not giving it any.
No.
You're not saying this is what I think, or that you're just showing this story, and we make up our own minds.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's important because ultimately, I want people to come away from that and keep thinking.
Yeah.
I don't want them to close down the thinking because they've been given an answer. I want them to be given a sort of a launch pad to come back to this conversation in their own heads over the next few days.
You've done that beautifully, because I still ponder about this one. and your protagonist, I mean, she's fabulous.
Yeah.
Was that a choice to make it a woman in there?
Well, that's quite an interesting thing, because I wanted it to be about relationships, and I wanted it to be about the idea that this AI that she's fallen in love with has managed to make her fall in love, in the sense that he says and does all the things that someone would want to hear. And I thought that would be much more interesting to explore from a female perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm not being sort of crass here, but I think as soon as you go to the male side, it's not going to be about love to start with. It's going to be about far less, more base things than that.
No,
So,
absolutely. I think it's a really interesting choice. And I mean, she's wonderful. I mean, they're high-profile actors you've got. I mean, Mandy's been in loads of things. Mandy Dillon.
Mandy Dillon,
Yeah. I mean, she's been in loads of stuff.
Yeah, she has, and she had just signed on to CSI, or she'd done one season of CSI,
Right.
and she was really keen to work on this because she hadn't done sci-fi before, so that was really interesting. And I think probably the UK audiences know her more for comedy, but I'd seen a short film called The Forgotten Sea, which is a short film that she was in, and it's the other side. It's more like a drama performance, and I thought she had the range, because what's important for this particular project is that she is essentially playing two roles: one where she's much more relaxed and happy, and then another where she's kind of up against it. So it was important that actor had range. So when Mandeep said yes, I was really, really happy. Happy.
I know. I mean, the performance is fabulous, and you're right. It's just completely that the colour is there, isn't it? I mean, was that difficult to get? Because your other protagonist was also has done a lot of stuff, hasn't he?
Joe Dempsey's been in lots.
Yeah.
I mean, not least Game of Thrones.
Well, just one of those little ones. But yeah, I mean, to bring them on board, did that help with getting funding for the film?
The funding was already in place. Yeah, it was, and
because you did this with the BFI, didn't you?
The BFI came on board.
So how did that work? How did you get involved with them?
The BFI, I mean, I make this joke that it's not a joke. It's kind of like the reality of it. We started it in the pandemic, and we finished in a cost of living crisis, and it was just awful. It's just the whole thing. But the BFI pretty much went offline for like 9 months as soon as we had submitted, because it was like a couple of weeks before the pandemic. So our industry completely closed down, including the BFI. So we had to wait a long time to even find out if we had got funding, and then we found out we had, but there was still so many COVID things in place, all the restrictions, that we kind of postponed the shoot until it got a bit easier. So that was a difficult process.
I mean, it's never simple, is it? No. But with those things thrown in, it's kind of like, and I mean, it's it's sci-fi, but it's this love story. It's also a thriller as well. Yeah, it's there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that the idea is served by those things. I don't really see genre when I do something. It's more to do with what needs to serve the story. And sometimes you see things that are kind of like they don't have any genre, or you couldn't probably break it down. Something like Donnie Darko, I mean, what do you describe that as? So I think it's just where the story leads you, really.
Yeah.
But I think if you start with a genre in your head, then you're going to fall into the trap of doing all the tropes of what that genre wants you to do. So it's best to have your ideas and then, define it afterwards if you can.
So what is your process with writing then?
Well, I'm interested in sci-fi, but the sort of what-if kind of questions, I think they're the most interesting and important to society, really. It's kind of like good sci-fi should really challenge you to think about what we're doing, with our choices. So that I would like to think they're trying to be at least serious-ish, which already moves it a little bit away from pure genre. But like authors like Philip K. Dick and people like that were kind of my touchstones when I was growing up as a teenager and stuff. It's like those sci-fis really blew me away that he wrote.
Yeah.
So I would say I've definitely got a slant for that. I mean, I am a genre filmmaker, but I just don't want to do it with, that kind of no consequences of the fact that other people are doing that the same ways.
You don't want to be in a box.
You don't want to be in a box, but you do want to be a genre filmmaker.
Because I suppose when you're going and asking for funding, the people that you're asking for funding generally aren't creatives, are they? So they're...
Yeah, in some cases.
Yeah, can that be complicated? Do you then have to sort of shape how you pitch it?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, I think you have to say different things to different people, essentially, or present them in different ways. I think the main thing that I would do most of the time is always present with pictures. Just the cliche 1,000 words for an image. It's true. It really is. If you've got 3 or 4 killer images and a good pitch, then you probably said as much as you possibly could with other words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a visual
medium,
isn't it? Yeah.
And if you've got a mood film, even better.
Yes.
That's what I've started to do recently.
Yeah.
Just putting mood films together, because I think without ending up with just a piece of work that someone else's, it has to. If you're using other people's work to give a mood film, it can make it very difficult to differentiate your project from someone else's. So you've got to kind of sidestep that a little bit. But is there any water I can use? Because
could anyone?
My mouth is
cool.
so dry.
No, it's all right, Amir. It's all right. They're going to bring one into you.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to wait a bit to have a drink? You're getting dry.
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So tell me about the feature that you're developing.
Okay. So Lifelike is a similar setup to Soulmate, that you have this company that's developing cutting-edge AI in a simulation, trying to prove that AI is safe, because the choices they make in a simulation have to be safe. So they're not murdering each other in the simulation. That's a good thing. So there's a state of equilibrium that they're trying to establish for a long period of time, so that the simulation can kind of prove that it's safe. So that's the kind of world that we're in. Sorry,
it's fine. She's waiting outside. Come on, Alessia. Do you want to let her know that she can come in? Oh, thanks, Amir.
So dry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I'm really sorry. I should have given you a glass when you came in. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's much better.
Do you want more?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So, do you want me to restart?
Let's do that question again.
Yeah. So, are we all right to go?
Yeah.
So tell me about the feature film that you're developing at the moment.
Yeah, so Lifelike, like I said, is an offshoot from Soulmate. It was written before Soulmate, and I was really interested in where AI has gone to head. So, and I did an awful lot of research, and what the stages seem to be is that they would develop AI in simulations as soon as it gets to kind of like advanced stages. So that they can prove whether it's safe or not. And by that, they interact with each other before they interact with us. So that's why the simulation would be the root. So similar to Soulmate, we start with a company that's kind of that world, that a company is doing advanced AI research. And there's analysts and people who are watching over the simulation to make sure that things are going to plan. So they're looking out for the simulation kind of breaking down, because murders start to occur, or crimes of any sort start to occur. So you've got this utopian world, and they're trying to keep it utopian. So all the variables that the programmers have put in place allow, greed and stuff like that to be really kind of pushed down in the agenda of the AI psyches and things like that. So this analyst is our main protagonist, and she thinks that her particular simulation has reached consciousness because they're saying and doing things that were checklist of things that they needed to look out for. And the company just won't listen to her because in the wider world, that aspect of it has been outlawed. So what you're seeing really is companies that are a bit rogue trying to do this amongst the sort of edges of society. And it's a bit of an arms race. So she's a whistleblower, I guess, inside the company.
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. But as you can imagine, it's sci-fi and it's expensive. So.
I know. Is Soulmate a little bit of a proof of concept for this then?
Yeah. Soulmate's definitely a proof of concept. And I think as soon as you've seen Soulmate and then read Lifelike as a script, you can pretty much see it.
Yeah.
Which, I could see it already, I guess. But for other people, I think it's quite an invaluable tool.
And I suppose the festival circuit is quite important with that as well. Yeah, I mean, totally. What's important to you with the festivals?
The festival circuit is really about getting feedback from people that they did or didn't enjoy it in a sense, because I think the more positive feedback you get, and that includes nominations or awards or whatever, then you kind of prove to your future financiers that you do know what you're doing, essentially. And I think that's kind of the missing step between short film makers and making feature films, is that have you got an audience? Will you have an audience? And I think festivals demonstrate that. If you get into lots of festivals, then you already have this situation where, maybe thousands of people have seen your film. Which
is what you want. You don't make them to not be seen,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
and the feature film's exactly the same. You don't want no one to see it once it's made, and neither does anyone who finances one.
Absolutely.
So I think it just breeds confidence in the filmmaker and the films that filmmaker has made. So it's hugely invaluable. Yeah.
Wow. Come and see this film at our festival, the SohoLIFF 2025. Soulmate it's a stunning film, and we're so proud to be screening this. So thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it on the big screen.
I know, me too. It's nice to see it on the big screen.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
for sure. Don't miss it.
Cut.